Quran say about secularism? Some people want to change the Turkish constitution and want to impose the Islamic Sharia in Turkey. But as there is a great number of people who are against it. What is Huzur's opinion in this regard?
I have expressed my opinion very clearly and repeatedly before during many question and answer sessions. But before I proceed to answer your question, I would like first of all to define secularism, because it's highly essential that we know what we are talking about. Secularism can be understood differently by different people, so we must have a very clear definition of secularism in the context of this question. By secularism, some people believe that a state or a government which is irreligious and irreligious, without religion and rather anti-religious. This is not the right definition or the understanding of secularism. Secularism only means a government which will not decide matters of justice and everyday affair of the life of that country in the light of any divine book. See? In the light of any divine book or any hereditary religion of any people. It will adhere strictly to the dictates of peace, to the dictates of justice, to the dictates of the welfare of the people. This is the true meaning of secularism, which is valid. The rest is all meaningless and just hollow claims. Now, this definition which I have made is exactly the definition of the government advised by the Quran, a correct, true government. Because this secularism, which does not takes its clues from any religious book or traditions, has to be free in disposing justice. It would not differentiate or discriminate rather between followers of one religion and the followers of other religions. It would not discriminate between people from one region of the country and people from another region of the country. It would not discriminate between the party which elected this government and the party which opposed this government. Once having reached the power, if they dispense with the business of government absolutely honestly and justly, and this is secularism. So the Holy Quran, speaking on this subject, says, فَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ. Read the full verses. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تُؤَدُّوا الْأَمَانَاتِ إِلَى أَهْلِهَا وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تُؤَدُّوا الْأَمَانَاتِ إِلَى أَهْلِهَا وَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ أَن تَحْكُمُوا بِالْعَدْلِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ نِعِمَّ مَا يَعِظُكُم بِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. Verse from Surah Nisa 59. This means when you vote, when you exercise your right of vote, that is amana, give it to the person who most deserves it. And when you are voted into government, فَإِذَا حَكَمْتُمْ, then rule with absolute justice. Where does the Holy Quran requires, where does the Holy Quran require the Muslims to rule with Sharia? Show me one place, one single ayah, one half an ayah. Nowhere. Whenever it comes to government, material affairs of government, how you should dispense your responsibility when you govern people, this is the only advice. Rule with absolute justice, with further precautions, reminding the Muslims that nothing should dissuade them from practicing absolute justice. Even the enmity of a people with whom you are dealing. Furthermore, it emphasizes the issue by reminding the Muslims that even the enmity of a religious people who had transgressed against you and who had obstructed your passage to Hajj, to Khana Kaaba, even that crime of theirs should not persuade you to deviate from the path of justice. اعدلوا هو أقرب للتقوى. Do justice, perform justice, exercise justice. That is nearer to the fear of Allah. So if this is the concept of the mullah, of the rule of Sharia, then it's most welcome. But this is not their concept. Their concept is at variance with the Quranic concept. That is why we don't accept it. And if the secular people who raise the voice of secularism, instead of raising that voice from their own behalf, if they refer to these verses of the Quran which I have so often quoted, then the mullahs will be disarmed. Because then it would not be a fight between religious people and irreligious or irreligious people. It will be a fight of those who follow the Quran and those who speak in the name of the Quran but have nothing to prove from the Quran. That is the advice which you should write home about. Right? Thank you. Moreover, these people who advocate the strict rule of Islamic law should be attempted to be convinced with some other arguments, which are very sensible and reasonable. First of all, they should be reminded that there is no single concept of Sharia in matters of human rights anywhere in the world. In relation to God, whatever the mullahs dictate their followers, it doesn't make much difference here in the world. Whether somebody's prayers are accepted by God in this way or that way are issues which will be decided after death. Nobody would know here. So let them do whatever they like. Their account will be settled by God. This is what Allah tells them. They think they are doing good, but let them return to us and then we will tell them. So they should wait. But when they dispense the questions of rights and obligations, human rights and obligations in relation to each other, then whatever happens here on earth becomes a human responsibility and a human concern. Everybody in a government is not always belonging to the same faith. In any government of the world, it's hardly, I doubt if there is any single government in the whole world which has its subjects belonging to one single faith. So when people of different faiths live and jointly own a country and enjoy the civil rights of a country, how on earth can you dispense with justice if you try to impose your Sharia upon them. Is this the meaning of justice which the Holy Quran presents? It's impossible. Only one yardstick can be used to dispense with justice. No other yardstick would be permissible. So the government they have in mind is impracticable. It cannot be conceived in real life. Because whatever government Sharia, first of all, the concept of Sharia which they have, that would be different from others. So I'm not talking at present of other people belonging to other faiths. Forget it for the time being. People belonging to Islam. They're Shias, they're Sunnis, they're Brelvis, they're Wahhabis. Those who belong to Hanafite jurisprudence. Those who belong to Maliki or Hanbali or Shafi'i jurisprudence. They read the Quran and the Sunnah differently. And the punishments meted out for crimes are different. And sometimes an act seen as a heinous crime by some is considered to be an act of goodness. I don't want to highlight this issue on certain beliefs of the Shiite faith, but everybody knows. And they consider those things as signs of piety. Signs of piety of a degree that if you repeat such acts, you will rise to the status of the holiest of the holy. And others look at the same acts as crimes punishable by death, no less than death. They should be beheaded, such people. And some others, no, not death, but 100 lashes, at least, and very severely delivered. Which Sharia will they impose? Where? If they impose a Sharia of Shia faith in Iran and a Sunni faith in Saudi and say Wahhabi faith in Saudi Arabia, in the name of Islam, people will be murdered in one area for the same act for which they will be honored in another. Is this the image of Islam they want to present to the whole world? It is, in fact, what can I say? This is no service to the cause of Islam. It is the worst crime you could commit against the faith of Islam, or presenting it in such a paradoxical situation. So Sharia, in the name of Sharia, no government in the world is authorized to represent a Sharia which has a unanimous concept in the entire world of Islam. But Sharia cannot split. So this means that the differences are man-made. Otherwise, there is no God. So it's not just a small issue of emotional relationship with the law of Islam or aversion to the law of Islam. It's not at all that. It's an issue which must be decided in view of the best services one could render to the cause of Islam. If you follow this, then in fact you will have man-made Sharias in the name of God. Because God's Sharia cannot contradict internally every order or command of the Sharia has to be consistent with other orders and commands of the Sharia. The moment there is contradiction, the whole Sharia goes overboard. The very concept of God goes overboard. There can't be any God who would command different things in the same book and diametrically oppose things. This is a challenge which they cannot accept. They have no power to discharge the responsibilities of their claim that we are going to impose the Sharia of Islam. There is no such thing. A single concept of Sharia is no longer left. When you impose a Sharia in the name of God, all you are doing is man-made Sharia. If it is mixed with God-made Sharia, yes, I agree. But parts of it have to be understood, parts of it have to be taken as man-made, otherwise there could not be any contradiction. This is the argument. So man will be ruled by men in the name of God? Who would acquire the authority of God? Mullahs. They will murder people in the name of God, while God would not support that argument which leads to the murder of some innocent people. Because the same God would be saying different things in the country next door in the name of same Islam. So things have gone too far beyond the time of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Islam is no longer an unsplittable single entity. So whatever they may do, they cannot impose Sharia of the Quran as the Sharia of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is revealed to him anywhere in the world. That's one argument, and the others will follow. Please.
Now another point which also is very important in this context is the issue of principle of government. I am now returning to the issue of the principle of government, in the sense that if you accept one principle as valid, that principle has to be valid elsewhere in other parts of the world as well. Or the very different treatment of the same issue in different countries would violate the dictates of justice. Whatever Islam owns for itself, it must give as a right to others as well. Or Islam itself will be the most unjust religion. So if Islam dictates its adherents to rule by their religion, the people, whether they belong to the religion or not, then this is the right which is automatically extended to all other countries of the world. Because without this principle that the majority of a people, if they belong to one single religion, automatically acquire, by the virtue of belonging to the same religion, the right to impose their religion upon the minorities. This is the principle. You can't withhold this principle. You simply cannot withhold this principle from being utilized by other countries of the world. So what you invite is big trouble all over the world. You give this right to the Muslim at one place, and the Hindu governments of India or Nepal or anywhere else would claim the same right. And they could rule you with the laws of Manusmruti, the Hindus could, which is much severer than the wildest crookedness of the mullahs can imagine. They lead them in this respect, at least, the Hindu scholars. All right, this committing of cruelty in the name of God, if this is the field, then we can outpace you. Come, mullahs, and have a race with us. Manusmruti carries this subject to such heights. As I said, the mullahs
despite their best efforts, cannot reach that. According to Manusmruti, if a Hindu Pandit is reading his book, Vedas, and a non-Hindu achut like the Muslims, if a passerby belonging to the minority hears that sermon from Vedas, he should be caught hold of, and molten lead should be poured into his ears, because he was not worthy of hearing the pious words of God. It's an insult to God for a minority scheduled caste to hear the pious words of Vedas. So these mullahs have done a similar injustice to us. They say if you read the Quran, then you are worthy of being hanged to death because of the crime of reading the Quran with your filthy, uncouth eyes. But they go a step further. They say, no, you don't have to read Vedas, even if you hear, passing by. See, mullahs are no match for Hindu Pandits. So then, molten lead would be poured into the air, and it will go leak out of the other side, I'm quite sure. It will burn its passage right across. So death, but a very cruel, torturous death. But that is just a very small example of Manusmruti. If you read it, you will be horrified at the way Hindu religion requires its own adherents to treat non-Hindus. So you commit to all this transgression and utter cruelty and beastliness in the name of God. More than 10 million people of Muslims of India, they're quite some now, 20 million perhaps? Around 20 million Muslims of India. Can Quran permit this? So they're just playing with fire like children. They don't know what they're playing with. They don't understand the implications of this issue. Just being sentimentalist about this and that would not resolve the serious human issues of things like government and things, and etc. Right? Somehow put this across to the whole people of Turkey. Let them hear what the Quran requires and the common sense requires.
That's why I asked this.
Thank you. Yes. This legal question which I have raised, or the question on a law point, on a point of law, I mean, is not just raised by me as a layman who has not read much of the philosophy of law, but it has also been raised by the Chief Justice of a Court of Inquiry which was constituted in Pakistan after the anti-Ahmadiyya riots of 1953. I refer to His Lordship Justice Munir of Chief Justice of Supreme Court of Pakistan. This justice I am referring to has won laurels from the community, legal community everywhere in the world, in his services to law and his deep understanding of law. So he is a world authority on the question of law. He, when similar issues of the government of Sharia were raised, inquired from all the ulama this question. He said, I understand your position. You think because you are in majority, so you have the right to rule the people with the Islamic Sharia as you understand. He said, first of all, put your heads together and come to me with one concept of Sharia. Then we'll take up the issue from there. And none could do it. Secondly, he said, all right, hypothetically, just by way of thinking, if I concede you this right, that is this right that according to Islam, you have to impose Islamic Sharia, then how can you take away this right from other people of the world? This is my question. He says, he inquired from Maulana Modudi himself. He said, tell me, if you insist on this, do you understand the implications of this, what you're talking about? Modudi Sahib said, yes, I do understand. He said, do you realize that if Hindus impose Manusmruti on the Muslims of India, then you will have no legal justification in your hands to prevent them from doing it. Modudi said, yes, I understand this. He said, then what? He said, I do not care what happens to the Muslims of India or Muslims anywhere, because what I think is Sharia, I must follow that. Utter stupidity. When this is the expression of the most knowledgeable people, this is the concept of the most so-called knowledgeable people of Islam, then what order can be left in the world, in the affairs of religion anywhere in the world? So this question must be completely rejected offhand. It's impractical, it's unjust, it's unfair, and would bring the world of Islam into such, drag the world of Islam into such problems as it would not be able for them to wriggle out of them again.